Did I tell the story of Mallory and I's first date yet on this show? That we didn't know was a date?
I don't think so.
Okay, so she moves to Carlisle in March of 2015, whatever it is.
I feel like maybe you did.
I think I might have told you off air, but I don't know if I told you on air.
Yeah.
If I'm repeating this show to our dozens of listeners, I apologize. Our first date, we went to lunch and a movie. We didn't know it was a date at the time because she's this brand new reporter, and I'm just like, hey,
you wanted to do a nice thing.
Yeah,
for her.
I just was like, here, like.
So he says. He had a crush.
Did I find her attractive at the time?
Yes,
I did.
Yes.
But I also was coming off of another breakup, and I don't know this woman at all, and. Neither one of us
instincts.
Neither one of us acknowledged it was a date. We split the bill and everything. I didn't try to do the chivalrous thing. So we're ordering at, I think we were at Applebee's for this. We're ordering at Applebee's and they ask us what we want to drink, and I get Sprite or Coke or whatever, and she gets Diet Coke, and I just start giving her crap for the fact that why is a 20-something getting diet soda? Like, no one my age got diet soda at that time because
and then she's like, I'm a diabetic. Yeah, and so you're like, I'm a jerk.
About 5 minutes in, she's just like, oh, I just like the taste. I was like, no one likes the taste of 25 of Diet Coke. Why? And she goes, well, I'm type 1 diabetic. And I'm just like, nice job. Like that was it.
That was it. Well, you're married now, so you did something right.
Somehow I dug myself out of that little grave.
Jake Adams, you smooth talker.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right.
You don't need diet. He was trying to schmooze there, like, you don't need diet soda.
Oh, it definitely was not that.
You know? I actually had a guy on a date, and I told you guys a story where he's like, no, diet. And I said, no, regular Coke. And he said diet 3 times to the server. And I looked at the server, and I said, I'm so sorry. I said, but please don't bring me a diet soda. Just bring me a regular. I don't drink diet.
You ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes, I love Napoleon Dynamite.
There's that scene where
the milk.
Napoleon goes up to the girl that goes around selling like these little trinkets.
Deb.
And she's drinking 2% milk. And he's like, are you drinking 2% because you think you're fat? Yeah. You don't have to. You could drink whole if you wanted to.
I remember that part.
You should
Those pickup lines are great.
Yeah.
You should be the uncle for next Halloween. That would be another good fit for you.
We could all do that. I could be Deb. We could have Pedro. We could have the brother.
Remember when everyone had the
You would have
Pedro
to be the
shirts?
brother.
I'd have to be the brother.
You'd have to be the brother.
Kip.
You could be Kip. And you'd have to do the Kip when he's like with LaFonda, and you'd be like, LaFonda is the best thing that's ever
He looks in the
me.
time travel in that movie.
He does. Remember when he gets that thing with Uncle Rico?
The uncle's like, Kip, tell me, have you ever looked into time travel? He's like, yeah, I've looked into it. He's like, because I spend like 15 hours a day on the internet. Welcome to Eye on Sports, where we delve into the biggest Butler County sports topics. I'm your host, Butler Eagle Sports writer Derek Pyda. Joining me are fellow sports writer Brendan Howe and Eagle Sports editor Jake Merda Adams.
Did you know, though, the actor that played the uncle, you know, he was eating steaks all the time?
Yep.
Well, if you watch, he doesn't eat it. Apparently, he doesn't eat red meat. And every time you'd see him chewing, and he'd always take his napkin to his mouth, and he'd take that piece of meat out, and spit it out.
Why couldn't he just make it fake meat?
Because of where they live. Well, yeah, but I guess because of where they lived, it really had to be authentic. But he still was chewing it.
Or maybe
and
just shoestring budget. It's just easier to just get steak.
Probably
than try to fake steak.
Yeah.
Can I interest you in the 24-piece set? Is it like Tupperware?
The best is when Kip tries to drive over that thing and it breaks, and he's like, oh crap.
He just pulls
and
out.
And then he drives away. He like takes off in the van. Oh, it's so good.
How about the suit that Napoleon wears for the prom?
Epic.
So good.
It's so good.
Oh, man,
I look
forget
back
so many
now.
one-liners from that movie. I gotta watch that again.
It's
that
like
is such
something
I was
out
obsessed
of
with it.
Saturday Night Fever. That suit is like
and now he's like walking down the street and the music that's playing. It's like
he's got the corsage with it.
There's a stretch there where you have Napoleon Dynamite comes out and then Dodgeball comes out, I think like a year or so later. And we showed my parents Napoleon Dynamite, and my dad thought we were some of the dumbest people in the world. He was like, if you ever tried to do something like it felt like one of those things, if you ever do this again, I will disown you. And then so Dodgeball comes out, and my brother and I like that movie a lot, and we just don't say anything because we're just like, Dad's gonna find this really stupid. And like a year or so later goes by, he watched. I might have actually been in college. I think I get a text from my mom, and she's like, "Dad watched Dodgeball and thought it was funny." And I was like, "No, he didn't. There's no way." I was like, "There's no way he liked that movie." She's like, "Yeah, he thought it was hilarious." My dad has probably seen that movie 24 times. I bet you the only movies he's seen more than that might be Star Wars, Jurassic Park, or Star Trek. Like ones that have been around since the 70s and 80s. He has watched Dodgeball so many times.
My dad
I can't believe he likes it.
My dad tried watching Napoleon Dynamite because I talked the movie up. I think it's hilarious. But
Hilarious.
it shows that it's, when it comes to humor, it can be an acquired taste because my dad was 5 minutes into that movie. If you remember, the opening scene's him throwing that like He-Man figure out and he's just dragging it with the string.
Oh, yeah, on the bus.
And my dad's like, what is that? I find that
Down
hilarious.
the dirt road. It's so
My
funny.
dad literally said, shut it off. I can't watch that anymore. It's stupid.
He throws out the window with the school bus windows.
Yeah, you remember what his favorite animal is?
A liger.
A liger.
It's mixed
A
between a
liger. He's
lion
always,
and
like,
a
drawing
tiger.
pictures
Yes,
of it, yeah.
ligers. And a
Yeah.
liger, did they have wings? No.
How about the Happy Hands Club?
Oh my
Happy
god.
Hands Club
Oh,
was good. It's just-
some say love.
I think that was the first time I've ever seen someone
Yes,
do that.
Bette Midler. Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh. Did
gotta
you
watch that
know
movie
that
again.
there's a bonus scene after the credits at the end? Have you watched it? Please tell me you've seen it.
Remind me. There's a good chance I have.
It's LaFonda and Kip getting married, and Napoleon comes riding in on a stallion.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You have so you have to watch it, and you have to go past the credits. It's hilarious. Like her whole family's there, and one of her brothers. I'm assuming it's a brother, maybe. It's just like, oh. And he sings this song to her, and they have this like beat beat beat, this like beatbox things going. He's like, LaFonda. I don't know what he sings, but it's hilarious.
Okay, favorite character from that movie? Go.
It's got to be Kip. Kip's so funny in that movie.
Pedro. I love Pedro.
Pedro's real-
I do love Pedro. Vote for Pedro.
Napoleon tries to do that jump on the bike, and he just boom.
Isn't that
yeah.
in front of the school or something too? Like just on the sidewalk.
The thing,
Yeah.
I mean,
Those shoes.
How much you want to bet I could throw a football over them mountains?
Those shoes and that shirt. Like everyone had the shirt, and if you had the shoes, you were somehow cool.
oh, I want the moon boots. I
they're
want the
so
moon
funny.
boots.
If I could go back in time to 82, we'd win state. I'd be in a hot tub right now with my soulmate.
The first scene you see of his uncle is just him in his trailer, like somewhere off some beaten path.
Oh, yeah.
He's just throwing a football with the
laundry
VHS
hanging out, laundry hanging outside the van.
VHS
He's
camera
got
there,
one of
he's
those
doing a
big
bicep
vans, you know, with the
back.
windows up top.
Yeah, and he brings the video to Napoleon and Kip's. He's like, and they're
Watch
watching.
this.
And Napoleon's like, this is the stupidest video ever. Kip's like, how could you ever even know that? He just walks out of the room.
I kind of like the grandma. I love how the grandma just strolls in. And where's she going? Reno? Did she?
No, she's
say-
going to the sand dunes.
the
Yeah.
dunes.
She
That's
breaks her
with
coccyx.
with her boyfriend.
Yeah. Grandma has a boyfriend? Looks like there's a lot you don't know about her.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I really like Pedro. I do like Deb. I just think she's funny with her little caboodle. And she makes all those little, that's what she carries around. She has those little caboodles on that rolling thing.
Summer Wheatley.
Summer Wheatley. The cake, the drawing he makes for her. He's like, I tried working on the shading on your upper lip. Oh my gosh. I feel like now we need to have like a movie night or something and watch Napoleon Dynamite.
One of the best kickers
it's
to end
so
a joke
good.
was when you actually see LaFonda like 2 hours or an hour and a half into the movie, and you're just like, no, she doesn't exist. And she's this big black woman compared to him, and it's just like, how's this?
Well,
how
did
is
you
this
see like her under the table where like she's got like her sandals on and he takes his foot out of his
Yeah.
like sandal with the
He-
sock and
yeah,
he's
he's
like
got the
rubbing
old
his
man
toes.
sock on,
He's
yeah.
got the socks
Yeah,
on. He's
and-
rubbing her feet and
and-
she's like,
He weighs like 92 pounds soaking wet.
It's so funny
she's like a woman and he looks like a child.
with
Oh.
a really bad mustache.
Yeah, really bad. It's
Also-
hilarious.
Also,
though.
a movie that's got bowling in it.
It does.
It does.
Have bowling in it.
They're in the bowling alley for a little bit. It is one of like 4 bowling movies
Yes.
in the history of the world.
Yeah, Kip throws the ball, and they got the bumper rails up, and it's going back and forth between the bike. He's like, come on, yes! It's like, dude,
no, he
you're
turns
like
around and
30
he goes,
years old. Yes,
That
you're,
fist pump.
you're
He
30
just
years
does
old, and you're using the bumper rails.
Oh wow, I forgot that they went to the bowling alley.
Yep.
How about when Uncle Rico throws the steak and hits Napoleon right in the face? Knocks him off the bike.
Oh, that's right. There's so many good bike scenes in that movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right after the throw this football over the mountains, and then I think Napoleon comes riding past,
Yeah.
and he
pegs
picks
him.
it up off the plate. He just pegs him.
How about when he's working at the farm?
Oh, the eggs and
Yeah.
you
And
can't
he
even
gets
understand
paid like $6 in pennies.
pennies.
That is that was such a shoestring budget movie. That's one of those cult classics that just blows up out of nowhere. That costs like $4 to make and makes tens of millions of dollars.
Great movie.
That's exactly what it did.
Yeah.
And John, I think his name's John Hamm, isn't it? It's similar to that other actor, John. What's his name?
John Hamm, I know from what?
He's an older
What show
guy.
is it? Well, I can't remember what show John. I know who John Hamm is.
Isn't he
but
American Dad? Isn't he the voice of American Dad? Maybe?
Oh, he might be that too.
Anyways, the guy who plays Napoleon, after that, like, it's like he tried to be in other movies. And it's like, dude, when we look at you, we see Napoleon dying. I'm sorry you did something here.
Yeah.
It's like the Harry Potter.
You were too
cast for me.
good.
Like,
You
I
were
can't
too
see
good.
You were
in the
too
role.
good.
Yes.
You're gonna need to make another Napoleon Dynamite movie because, or that character needs to go on or something.
If
because
it became an SNL skit, that would be funny. But you can never do a sequel of that movie. It will never be as funny.
yeah, that's true.
But make it an SNL skit, or just like it shows up every now and then on SNL. It would be really, really funny, like Blues Brothers, but in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got to bring that. If we're talking Napoleon Dynamite, where they go down to the Taekwondo, and the guy's like slapping him around.
He's got those American
Come on,
flag
hit me.
pants on.
Hit me. Yeah. And
Oh,
you think
my.
anybody wants a roundhouse kick to the face while I'm wearing these bad boys? He's got these red, white, and blue pants on.
And then his wife.
Yeah.
His wife?
She's
got
like an
those,
American gladiator.
Yeah, she's got those massive arms.
Just imagine if
Starla.
we created a
Starla's her name.
Yeah.
Imagine we created a fanfic of like this and Breaking Bad are in the same universe, because they're in the same general area of the U.S. I believe. Both are in roughly Albuquerque, I think. And I think
Well, wasn't that in Utah? Isn't it somewhere more north?
maybe it is.
It's Idaho.
It's Idaho.
That's it.
It's somewhere like that.
But
I actually
imagine-
went past the Breaking Bad house.
Ooh,
That's
Tina,
an actual house.
Come get some dinner.
gosh.
Tina, eat your food. And he's
forgot
like
about the gosh.
slopping. He's like slopping it over the thing.
Yeah, but the dance scene, he rocks the dance scene. That is awesome.
Jamiroquai, man.
It's so good.
The best part of that is the fact that like Pedro walks out and he's like, vote for me and I'll make all of your wildest dreams come true. And then he just walks off stage. And then Napoleon just walks out and just stands there. Just the whole. And he starts doing the slide.
Are you ready to get your groove on? Yes.
Oh, that's funny. Good times.
I wonder if Brendan's ever seen that movie.
I was thinking the same
You
thing
know,
a minute ago.
probably not.
I would hope so. That came out when he
What if
was
we just
probably
like called
it
him
was
right
04.
now?
It
What if
came-
we just called him right now and we're like,
It
hey,
was-
we know that you're not here, but we have a question.
It was 0405 it came out, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw it was like a half day situation in middle school. I was in middle school when
you were in middle school?
when that came out. Yeah. And I hadn't seen it in theaters. I had heard some people starting to talk about it, and then so the teachers one day just like put us in the planet. We had a planetarium in a middle school, and they just put all of our grade in the middle school planetarium. We're just like, we're just going to watch this for the next hour and a half until schools
What?
can't close for the day.
That's funny.
So we got about 2/3 of the way through the movie. I actually didn't see it the full way through the first time. I had to watch
So
it again
funny
at home.
though.
Yeah. That was great.
I was living in Las Vegas when you were in middle school.
I was in middle school in Northampton, Pennsylvania, in a planetarium.
Wow.
Probably on a day not too similar, or
Derek?
not too different from this.
Where were you?
I was working here at the Eagle.
I was gonna say.
I started
Hey, you
02.
would have been, yeah, pretty early on.
Wait, what?
20 I would have
what,
been like 26 years old.
what year did you start again?
02.
Okay.
Little cub reporter Derek,
Yeah. Learning the ropes.
all scared, packing his ham and cheese sandwich. For
The
dinner.
people were stealing.
Got one of those today, actually.
Oh
Ham
my
and
gosh,
cheese.
ham and cheese.
Oh, yeah.
Did you put anything else on it? Mustard, mayonnaise?
I like mayonnaise on it, but I didn't bring any mayonnaise.
You like heat it up, right? I think I've
Yes.
seen you
I
like come in
toast the
and heat it
bread
up.
and I
Yeah.
heat up the meat and cheese.
Okay. Because I've seen it melted a few
That's
times.
how I
before
roll.
it.
Whoa.
There's a mayonnaise packet for you.
Jeez.
Awesome.
It's like
Sorry. Oh,
Mark
here's another
Andrews
one
trying to
because
catch
I don't
that
want
pass
them.
yesterday.
I randomly got them from lunch one day and I don't want them. So take them. There you go. Now you have mayonnaise.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All
So we
right.
had some football yesterday, this weekend.
We did, for a lot of fans around here, Steeler fans, the NFL season is, for all intent and purpose, over. But there are games still going on. I took somewhat of an interest in the 4 games. I watched a little bit of all 4. Chiefs beat the Texans, Bills beat the Ravens, Commanders beat the Lions, and Eagles beat the Rams. Obviously, the biggest game, as far as you're concerned, is the Eagles win in the snow. That was pretty cool to watch. Rams made it interesting there at the end, though.
The Eagles made that interesting. It's not to discredit the Rams. There, you'll notice how I didn't text you at all yesterday until after that game was over, because I was sitting there firing several people on that team multiple times.
Did the other games? I know the Lions were the number 1 seed, but their defense entered the playoffs decimated by injuries.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, that loss of the Commanders really didn't surprise me. Did it you? I mean, they were playing at home. They're the number 1 seed, but Washington's a really good team, and Detroit didn't have, 6-7 starters in there?
That Washington, or that Daniels balled out, and that they scored a bunch of points against that JV defense, and because with how injured it was. No, the fact that Jared Goff turned back into a pumpkin for one night was a bit of a surprise.
5 turnovers?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I missed a chunk of that game doing some errands and whatnot, but what I did see is just like, wow, what a game to just have your worst game in the last 2 years. Like, that's the worst spot, because this felt like the year that Detroit could win it all. Yep. And now you got to wonder, like, I sit there and look at this, like, the vibe. Sometimes vibes going into the playoffs can carry a team. Like, the Bills kind of have the vibes this year. The Steelers had the vibes back in 2007 with Bettis and everything. It's like, man, okay, going into Detroit, his hometown final game like this definitely feels like you're going to win it. This team had the vibes, and it's really hard to repeat a second year in a row.
And they showed, as the clock was winding down there, last couple minutes, they showed a number of fans in the stands, and you would have thought that they just lost their dog, their house, their truck, everything. I mean, they were just – you could tell the disappointment on their faces. But, you look at a franchise like Detroit. They were really good last year, great this year, got the number 1 seed. But when you look at the history of that franchise, we think of the Steelers, they won 2 Super Bowls this century, but they won 4 40-some years ago. Mm-hmm. And we think of that as a long time. But the last time the Lions won, I believe it was 1957.
Yeah, I think it was pre-AFL.
Yeah, it was. It was in the late 50s. I believe it was 1957. That's their last title. And since then, even if you count the last couple of years, I think they have 3 playoff wins.
Yeah, I've seen 2 of their 3 playoff wins in my lifetime, and they've been in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and they also beat Dallas in a divisional round game back in '91. But, the year the Steelers went to the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, the Steelers won 3 road playoff games to get to that Super Bowl. That's 3 playoff wins in 1 year.
Yeah.
And the Lions have 3 since 1958.
So
that's a fan base that is absolutely starved to see their team win. And last year they got to the NFC Championship game and gave up that huge lead to the Niners, one step away from the Super Bowl. This year they don't even win a game because they ran into a team that's really hot. And again, that defense was just injured.
It's why I look like I say this because I have respect for the fact that the franchise has done so well for the last 50 years. But like, I call Steelers fans largely entitled, because I hear a lot of like, well, if they don't make the AFC Championship kind of talk, then it's a failed year. And it's like, that's an impossible bar for 31 teams.
Every Kansas City, basically.
Yeah, or the Patriots before that, and the Peyton Manning Colts before that, and John Elway and the Broncos before. Like, you get a couple teams every 5 or so years that seem to just kind of carry the league for a little bit. Right now, it's the Chiefs. And a lot of these other franchises, like I would kill to have 6 Super Bowls. Like I saw the first one, the loss in 2004, and I was like, I'm never going to see a win ever again. I thought that was the one chance because I had known the history of that franchise for a long time, and I was like, they're not going to do it. And I hear Steelers fans, my father-in-law, my wife less so, she doesn't care about the Steelers as much as the Penguins, but like, oh, this is just pathetic. And I'm like, first 15 years of my life, I didn't know what winning was, and like Detroit's even worse.
Yeah, it's one of those things. A lot of Steeler fans, and when we're talking about sports here, I mean, each fan's entitled to, look at sports, look at their team the way they want to. But when I hear, if you don't win the Super Bowl or at least get there, you said a lot of fans call it a failed year. I don't look at it that way. Even this year, which ended miserably for the Steelers, they lost 5 straight games, including that embarrassing playoff loss to Baltimore last week. I'm still going to take away. I'm going to remember that game against Washington, especially if Washington ends up winning the Super Bowl. I know you don't want to think about that, but that game, that was Mike Williams' first game with the Steelers.
Yeah.
That was his only catch in like his first 4 games with the Steelers, and it was a touchdown to beat Washington. The game against the Chargers, where you're playing a great offensive team led by Justin Herbert, and you hold them to 10 points. I mean, it didn't end up the way I wanted it to, or any Steeler fan wanted it to, but there were still good memories to take away from this year. And I look at each year as its own entity. Brendan likes to, I mentioned him a few weeks ago. I said, hey, look, we could be Tennessee Titan fans. First thing out of his mouth, I knew this was coming. Well, they got the top pick in next year's draft. I was like, here we go. I look at 2024, do as good as you can. We'll worry about 2025 when it comes. So I don't care if they got the top pick coming up in the draft. The Steelers are better than the Titans this year. So
I got a cliche sports debate radio question for you. When you lose to the Ravens in the first round, or insert any team, but it's the Ravens this year. When you lose to the Ravens in the first round, are you then the kind of fan that sits there and goes, well, I hope the Ravens go on a run and win the Super Bowl so I could say I lost the Super Bowl champ? Or are you saying, no, I don't want that team to win, and especially my rival to win?
I was actually rooting for Baltimore yesterday, but not so they could go on to win the Super Bowl and say, hey, we beat the team that ended up winning the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I was rooting for them because I can't stand Buffalo. And had Baltimore won yesterday, I would be rooting for them next week because I can't stand Kansas City. Now I got an AFC Championship game where it's 2 teams I cannot stand. And I honestly, I know this is going to sound like, just people aren't going to be able to believe I'm saying this as a Steeler fan. I can't stand the Bills and the Chiefs more than the Ravens. The Ravens, I don't mind Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great player. People want to blame yesterday's loss on him. No, look at Mark Andrews. Couldn't catch. He fumbled once, dropped that 2-point conversion pass at the end. I don't like Baltimore, but I don't have the distaste for them that I do for Buffalo, and especially Kansas City, because Kansas City, they just played in their, 7th straight AFC title game?
That's ridiculous.
The only team I want to see win consistently is my team. Anybody else does it? Right now, it's still easy to root for Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they lost yesterday, but if they go on a run where they win 3 of the next 4 Super Bowls, I'm going to hate Detroit. I don't want to see any team win consistently except my team. And unfortunately, it's been since 2008 that the Steelers won, so we're still waiting. But I will say this regarding the Steelers. When a team wins a Super Bowl, obviously a coach gets and deserves a lot of credit.
Mm-hmm.
When a team loses, this was the Steelers' 6th straight playoff loss, and I mean you saw the game. I mean they lost by 2 touchdowns against Baltimore, but they got embarrassed.
Yeah, it wasn't close.
They
weren't in that
embarrassed.
game.
They got embarrassed against Cleveland a few years ago when they were down 28-0 in a playoff game with a minute left in the first quarter. They got embarrassed by Jacksonville back in 2017. Jacksonville was up 21-0 in the first quarter. At some point, I mean, how much of that blame has to go on Tomlin? Because it's not the exact same team that played in 2017 and got embarrassed by Jacksonville as what we just saw last weekend. The Steelers players, it's not the same roster. The common denominator is Mike Tomlin. He has to shoulder some of that blame. I mean, how much blame do you put on a head coach for having that long run 6 straight playoff games where you're getting blown out?
I think I throw a lot of blame at he can take a lot of blame for he couldn't stop the spiral. Like if you look at this season and go, okay, they went 12-5, made the playoffs, lost in the first round to a very good division champion team. If that's an average 12-5 season, you're going, okay, like I accept that. That was a pretty good outcome to the year. But the fact that it was 11-1 and you go 1-5 over the back end of the season, and the team just spiraled. Like each week, it felt like they were less and less in each game. That to me is where the coach didn't have the answer. And we've talked about this for the last few weeks. It wasn't injuries. It wasn't the defense struggled, yes, at the end, but that defense is very talented. The offense had enough weapons to be competitive in almost every game until the very end. Mm-hmm. The coaching staff didn't figure out what buttons to press to turn things around, regardless of what the playoff game was. It's just that stretch there, the last 6 weeks, where I look at it and go, that's on them.
Kind of the opposite of what happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they were in playoff position. They lose 2 straight games at home to 2 2-win teams, the Patriots and the Cardinals. Actually, the Cardinals and the Patriots. And you're thinking at that point they're 7-7. Oh, then they lost to the Colts. Don't forget that when they got blown out in Indianapolis to fall to 7-7. And you're thinking, okay, this is it. This is the end of the season. And then Mason Rudolph comes in, sparks the offense. They win their last 3 games and make the playoffs. Ended up losing by 2 scores up in Buffalo. But last year was different because this year the Steelers kind of backed into the playoffs because they lost their last 4 regular season games. Last year they had to win their last 3 to make it. But it is I got to be honest with you. It is next year. Let's say the Steelers have 1 or 2 losses by late October, early November. Yeah, I'm going to feel great about that as a fan. But in the back of my mind, are we getting to the playoffs again? And are we going to be down by 3 scores midway through the second quarter again?
Next year's going to be a big year for Tomlin, I think, for sure.
And Laura Crago.
Like next year, like as in right now, because I need a big year this year.
Next season.
Okay.
The next season starts in like 4 weeks. Can it start in 4 weeks?
Sure, that works.
Butler County's latest high school basketball player to reach 1,000 career points is Slippery Rock senior Josh Book. Josh reached the milestone in an 88-82 overtime win over Sharon January 15th. And he's joining us today on the Eye on Sports podcast. Josh, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Josh, you're now one of 8 players in the history of Slippery Rock boys basketball to reach 1,000 points. What does it mean for you to be part of that exclusive group?
It's an honor to be included with those players, but that was never the main goal of playing basketball. This is something that I've achieved with like the help of my teammates, but that was never the main focus.
So your 1,000th point came early in the game against Sharon. At the end of regulation, you hit a 3-pointer amid 4 Tiger defenders to send the game into overtime, where your team outscored the Tigers 18-12. Talk a little bit about the collective effort that it took to, number one, stay in that game and ultimately win it.
Yeah, it was nice to get that 1,000th point early in the game, so as a team we could focus on the task at hand. It took a tremendous effort by the entire team. Our point guard, Max Kovacic, brought the ball extremely well against Sharon's pressure. The guys coming off the bench had huge roles in the game. Took a team effort the entire game. In overtime, we had some big shots and big plays. Guys coming off the bench. Me and Anderson both fouled out of the game in overtime, and we had some guys step up and make big plays.
So 2 years ago as a sophomore, you were a good 3-point shooter off the bench. Now you are a dominant forward, averaging a double-double for the 2nd straight season. Talk about the improvements you've made in your game and how did you get there?
Yeah, that can be credited to our strength and conditioning coach, Lou DeJulia. He runs the weight room, and without him, I would not be I would not be where I am today without him. He's helped us prepare. He helps the entire team prepare for games and keeps us all healthy and in shape.
So, Josh, as a sophomore, did you see yourself elevating to a role where you are now, where you're obviously a big-time scorer, a big-time rebounder? Did you see yourself reaching that point this time 2 years ago?
I mean, I could see myself working my way closer to the hoop on offense. I mean, I was about the same height, but without the help of Mr. DeJulia, I would not have been able to put on some muscle and be the athlete I am today.
So you're headed to Grove City College to play basketball. People that pay attention to sports around Butler County, high school sports, especially in the fall, they know that you're also a star goalie on the soccer team. Was it always in your mind to play basketball in college? And was there ever any thought in your mind of possibly trying soccer? Because you're obviously good in that sport too.
I enjoy playing soccer with some guys that are on the basketball team, but basketball has always been the main focus and my favorite. It was nice to play something other than basketball to kind of I mean, it worked on my foot speed and allowed me to be in shape and prepare me for basketball and have a good time with my friends, which is what high school's about. But I was set on playing basketball in college. Coach Lammy at Grove City College is allowing me to have the opportunity to play, so I'd like to thank him for that. The Grove City College basketball program is something that I think I'm going to fit in very well with their ideas and the way they do things.
So when did you pick up basketball? When did you start playing that competitively, and when did soccer come into the picture?
I've played basketball my entire life. I mean, as long as I can remember, that was what I've played. And then soccer was something that my point guard, Max Kovacic, was like, hey, we need a goalie. What do you think about trying this out? And this was maybe in late elementary school. And I was like, sure, why not? And it's been super fun, and I'm so happy I played that.
Your entire varsity basketball career has come under head coach A.J. Merda. How does he relate to you and your teammates, and how has his presence as a head coach affected the team's play?
He relates very well to us. He's a teacher in the high school, which we see him every day. So that's we're super close with him. Him and the other coaches on the staff work extremely well to put us as a team in position to succeed. Also, I've had other coaches throughout my career that I would like to give a little shout out to. Melinda Rhodes, Tim Magnato, Merle Whitmer, and then the high school coaching staff, Joe Vermilia, Dale Walker, Coach Mata, and my dad, who's been on the bench for every single year of my basketball career. He's been extremely helpful, and without him and all of these coaches, I would not be where I am today.
So I'm going to reel off the starting five for you guys, and I think I got this right. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Obviously, there's yourself, Max Kovacic, Anderson Franco, Doug Popovic, and Braden King.
Yes, that's correct.
So what are your thoughts on the team moving forward? Because we get the box scores from every game. AJ sends them down to us, and obviously, you're leading the team in scoring. You're a big rebounder. You're averaging that double-double every game, but other guys are making big shots. You pointed out that yourself and Anderson fouled out in overtime in that game against Sharon, and your teammates were still able to pull it out. What are your thoughts moving forward with the playoffs right around the corner as far as this team's chances and the contributions you guys are getting from a lot of players?
Yeah, our entire team, we're super close with each other. We're best friends, all of us, and we work so well together. Someone who does not get as much recognition but is a huge part of our success is Cade Grossman. He's a senior on the team, and he matches up very well with me in practice, and he has taken it upon himself that his role is to prepare me and the team for what's coming up next. So without him, we would not be able to prepare for games. So I'd like to thank him for that. And I think our team, we're going to do well. I know we will.
So obviously you spend a lot of time involved in high school sports. We talked about the soccer team, the basketball team. When you aren't focusing on athletics, what are you into? What makes Josh Book tick when he's not in the athletic arena?
Yeah, when I'm not in the gym, I like to fish a lot. I'm a big fisherman, and I like to be with my friends. We like to fish together. I like a lot of outdoor activities, and something I enjoy is cutting grass. I enjoy cutting grass.
You like cutting grass? Hey, I'll give you my address. This
good.
this summer when it's 90 degrees outside, you can come by and cut it, and I'll give you a big glass of iced tea at the end.
Sounds good.
You have a passion for basketball. You have a passion for playing basketball. I was curious, do you have a rooting interest? Are you an NBA fan or a college basketball fan?
I like to watch all kinds of basketball, but I wouldn't say I'm like a diehard NBA or college fan. I don't have a team that I'm super into. But I love watching. I watch basketball all the time.
You just mentioned that you like to fish. Where's your favorite spot, and what's the biggest fish you've ever caught?
My favorite spot is I live pretty close to Lake Arthur at Moraine. So I have a boat that I go fishing with my buddies all the time, and my dad and my grandpa. The biggest fish I've caught is probably I caught a almost 7-pound bass 2 summers ago out of Moraine.
What
And
did you eat it? Did you mount it?
No, I took a picture and I released it.
So where do you actually live in the district then?
I'm right in between like Portersville and Harlansburg. I'm kind of on the outskirts. I'm not in town. Lake Arthur is like less than 10 minutes from my house.
Well, for somebody that loves the outdoors, that's awesome to have it pretty much in your own backyard. I actually live in the district myself. I live in Harrisville.
Okay, yeah.
My son's 9 years old, going on 25, and I don't know if he's going to be involved in athletics by the time he gets to high school, but I'm going to tell him that this guy named Josh Book is giving him something to shoot for, especially if he plays soccer or basketball, because you've been great in both sports. Josh, I wanted to get your thoughts. You're a Western PA guy, right? You grew up here.
Yes.
So have I, but this weather, and a lot of people maybe from Texas or Florida or California, when they think Pennsylvania, they think cold and snow this time of the year. But the weather that we're having now is, I think it's the coldest weather we've had for a stretch in 2 decades. Do you like the cold weather? Do you welcome this? And if you don't, how do you get through it? Thank God basketball's indoors.
Yes, I was going to say the thing that gets me through the winter has got to be basketball. I mean, I can't go fishing and I can't get my grass cut, but basketball is a nice, like in the summer, I'm outside and I'm playing basketball, but I'm outside and working and fishing. And then in the winter, basketball gets us through the cold times.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to most? I know you got business to take care of in the high school season, but you're going to Grove City College to play basketball. What's the biggest thing that you're looking forward to moving your game to the collegiate level?
I'm excited to play on a team of people that are like-minded with me. Not that my high school team isn't, but it seems like a program that I will fit into extremely well. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that.
Awesome. And what was the deciding factor in Grove City College? Was there any other school that you were seriously considering?
Yeah, I would say the deciding factor was definitely the coach. Him and I connected extremely well. All of the coaches, we connected really well, and I knew it was right when I talked to the coaches.
I'm not saying this may not have been part of your decision, but just the fact that you will be staying close to home, is that a pro? Is that a con?
Yeah, absolutely. That was something that I would like to be close to home because I like it here and I like to go fishing and I don't want to be too far from all that.
Josh, we wish you the best of luck the rest of the high school season and moving into your college career. We appreciate you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Actually, sorry, the league year starts, March 1st, I think it is, so like 6 weeks to go. All right, I got to pull this up because as anyone who's watching the show or listening to the show will notice.
Well, and they know that Brendan's not here
Yeah,
today.
we're missing our third.
He's here in spirit.
Oh, wait,
He is
yeah.
here in spirit.
You should grab that. Can you get it? And just hold it there like he's there. There you go.
I'll do this. I got it. Here we go. I can't imitate his voice, so we're not even going to attempt. But here's my question for you today, Derek. And I'm going to take a little bit of a different route. You have to get the first answer right. That's for your point. But I'm going to throw a bonus into that you can earn a maximum of 2 points. You will not lose 2. You can only lose 1, but you can win a maximum of 2. I wanted to throw a wrinkle in today because now I'm the captain.
I'm holding my mayonnaise for good luck.
All right. So this got me thinking a little bit yesterday with the Eagles going to play the Washington football team next week. It's the first time that 2 NFC East teams have played in the playoffs against each other since 1988, I believe it was, Cowboys, Washington. So which team has the Steelers faced the most in the playoffs? And your bonus point is, what is the Steelers' record in that series?
Okay. I am going to need a couple minutes to figure this out, but I'll have an answer for you after Beyond Butler.
Welcome to Beyond Butler. And I'm Jake Merda Adams. It's not Brendan today. He's out doing Ohio State things on Ohio State Day on a season that doesn't count because they didn't beat Michigan. In recent years, Derek, the PIAA has added girls wrestling and flag football. It's modified the start times for the winter and fall seasons. And there's a possibility, although it hasn't been too loudly spoken, that it could implement a shot clock now that the NFHS, which governs or gives guidelines to all high school organizations around the country, has said that states can implement a basketball shot clock if they want to. If you were president of the PIAA, emperor, God, whatever you want to call it, what's
Oz.
one rule?
I'm Oz.
If you are Oz of the PIAA, what's one rule or schedule change or new sport or whatever that you would implement or change in the PIAA if you could to make it better?
Wow. I thought you were going to ask me specifically about shot clocks, and I was going to be all over that one. Boy.
I know your answer is that one. That one's no fun.
Yeah. I'm actually not for shot clocks, but that's for another day. I know this is going to be the easy way out, and I know out east it's not going to go over well because it's basically why they went to 6 classes. I'd go back to 4 classes in football, 4 classes in basketball. We had a discussion on this show at the old building. This is like 6 years ago, before when they were just talking about moving the 6 classes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was about 8-9 years ago that it actually moved. So it was probably 2015 or so, and John claimed, our old boss, that you should not move to 6 classes unless it benefits the entire state.
Mm-hmm.
And I did bring up the point at the time. I said, John, but here's the thing. By staying at 4 classes, that doesn't benefit the entire state. Because out east, where you've got 6-8, schools that are now 6-8 all over the place in suburban Harrisburg, suburban Philly, that's where it makes sense to go to 6 classes. So if you stay at 4, you're basically saying to those schools out there, here, let's have a school that has an enrollment of 1,500 boys playing a school that has an enrollment of 750 boys, and they're in the same class because you're only staying at 4. So it's one of those things where neither solution is going to appease both sides of the state just because the population disparity is so great between East and West.
Yeah.
I guess maybe there's a middle ground when it comes to football. How about 5 classes? Not that they're going to listen to me, Mike Lombardi's.
Like I said, you are Oz of the PIAA, so you get to make your own rule.
How about this? How about go to the sports that currently have 6 classes, football, basketball, and let's say a 4-year cycle, let's take it down to 5 and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's, you're not doing 4, which is what this side of the state really wants. You're not doing 6, which is what the eastern side of the state wants, but it's kind of a middle ground, meeting in the middle. 5 classes, and let's see how it works out. Give it 4 years and see what happens.
So I don't want to dive too deep into this part of it, but I do want to ask you this as the wrinkle to that answer. Would you make one of those 5 classes a private school class, as a lot of people want to do?
I personally would not.
Okay.
You're
Oz. You get to make that decision.
Yeah, I'm Oz. Don't pay attention to the man behind the green curtain. I would say this. The people that deny or can't admit that private schools have an advantage in football, basketball, it just bugs me. I mean, you have to at least admit, look, when you have a Catholic school that has, let's say, a basketball team where the 14 or 15 varsity players are coming from literally 10, 12, 13 different school districts.
Yeah.
That's an advantage. But at the same time, it does bug me when a public school loses to a private school in the playoffs, and that's like all the coach of the losing team wants to talk about.
Or the fans. Or the fans.
It's like, look,
most coaches are pretty like PR about that.
Yeah.
Maybe what they'll say behind the scenes might have a different tone, but publicly
Right.
they usually won't.
I've talked to a few coaches that have gone on the record, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Usually, I say usually.
But you know what it is. And I will bring up this. And obviously this is just one case, but we've talked before in 2018 when Mars girls won the state championship.
Yeah.
They beat Archbishop Ryan in the state semifinals. A game out at State College. I covered it. Dominated that game. And that sent them to the state championship in Hershey where they played Archbishop Wood, and they won that game by 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's impossible. It's not like it's a public school going up against a private school. The private school's going to win. Just name the score. It's not a sure bet. So it has happened before where a public school can, even in the very late rounds of state, get past the private schools. But private schools absolutely have an advantage. And for people that want to deny that, I mean, we've both covered enough sports. You have to admit that they have an advantage.
Oh, yeah. I mean, where the advantage is if you can build the team to be good. This is the point I was going to make. If you can build the team to be good, then you can attract talent. But there are a lot of private schools out there that are not good at a particular sport or many sports,
right,
for whatever the reason is. They don't invest in the sports. There's not the talent around in the county to draw in. I'll use an example from when I was in Carlisle. Trinity High School, the local Catholic school there, their basketball team was really good in District 3, the Shamrocks. But it was that way because the coach had been coaching there for 40 years and built it into a powerhouse.
Right.
So then he started getting players to come to that school because he was a powerhouse and like, I can win here. I can get recruited here. I'm going to go there. But it was the chicken coming before the egg in that situation. It wasn't here birthday Catholic school, suddenly basketball is great there. Their football team was not very good. Their track and swimming teams, like they would have some talent go through, but it wasn't like they were powerhouses in those. It was just basketball because they built the basketball team into a power with a really good coach, one of the winningest in the state, and the players followed.
Gravitated.
Yeah, I mean it's the Krzyzewski model. It's any great coach. You get a great coach into a system, eventually players will come. Right. It happens in college more often where you can recruit.
And then even after that coach leaves, the program has a reputation.
Yeah.
Well, Molly Rotman. I'm actually covering North Catholic girls basketball tonight against Seneca Valley, and the coach previous to her was Don Barth, who he coached Molly in high school. And when Molly was there, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think they won 2 or 3 Whitfield titles while she was there. And I think they got the 2 state championships, winning one, losing one while she was a player there. Mm-hmm. And when she came back to the program as a head coach, I want to say, let me think, that would have been about 10 years after she graduated. I mean, the program was already, it was already established as a perennial power, and she was familiar with it because she had gone through the program herself. So when she came in, I don't think there was any real lapse as far as, they got a new coach, the program's going to take a step back. I mean, she hit the ground running basically when she became coach there. And here they are. I mean, they're a threat to make a deep run in the state playoffs every single year. And it's a great job by her. Absolutely, it's a great job by her. I'm just saying, if you are a public school, excuse me, and there's a private school, whether it's Catholic or just a Shady Side Academy type place right down the road, and a kid's starring for that private school, whether it's at quarterback or point guard or whatever, and that kid is from your school district, that would frustrate me because I'd be like, boy, that kid could be wearing our colors. But, obviously if the kid's family's paying him to go there, he has every right to go there. And he has every right to play a sport too.
Yeah. If I were the great and powerful Oz in this situation, this is the thought that I had because I remember seeing how this used to be structured. I would take as many sports as possible. Football doesn't work this way. But I would take as many sports as possible and make championship weekends where you have the semis and finals within 3 days of each other. Basketball used to be that way at Hershey Giant Center. You'd put the semifinals on a Friday and the championships on a Sunday, or you do Thursday, Saturday. I would do that to bring more fans in because then you make a giant weekend out of it. And you're more likely as fans to travel if you have a chance to be out there for 3 days than you are for
When was this, though?
I remember seeing this when I was doing a project on Carlisle's 4 straight state championships in the 80s. They would have the championships like 2 days apart. You'd play all 4 teams would descend on Hershey for the semifinals back to back. And then the championship game would be played 2 days later.
Was this back in the days of
Billy Owens and
Hershey Park Arena?
Yeah. The old
before the
barn.
Giants Center.
The old barn. Yep.
Yeah, jeez, it was because when as I mentioned, when Mars made the state championship in 18, the state semifinal was played at State College, and it was like 5 days before the state championship game. But that's interesting.
I would do that for like baseball, softball, volleyball, basketball, stuff like that.
Do you like the fact that lacrosse, baseball, softball, boys volleyball, all is now held at Penn State, all within like a 4-day span?
Yeah, it makes, I mean, from a media perspective, it makes sense a lot. Like if you have several teams competing at that stage, you just send a reporter out there and pay for the hotel and you're good. It makes the travel a lot more convenient. I'll say that. I don't know what the other options were, but I remember I had to cover a couple state baseball and softball semis and championships a few years, and just that drive up to Penn State wasn't my favorite. I'd rather drive to Hershey at least, but there weren't always a lot of baseball and softball are a little bit pickier on where your venues are. You don't have too many options that fit. So
Penn State's a shorter drive from here.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind it. In fact, I remember, I think it was 2 Junes ago. So this would have been June of 23 when Mars boys lacrosse played out there. I covered the game. Heartbreaking loss for Mars. They literally lost with like 2 seconds left. The kid from Marple Newtown scored a goal with 2 seconds left. But as I was leaving the lacrosse stadium, I heard over like the PA announcer introducing the lineups for the state baseball championship game that day, which is like, 600, 700 yards away from everything's like right there. So
it is pretty convenient.
Plus it is right in the middle of the state, which ironically, the year that Mars won the state championship, Mars boys lacrosse, they had to play the game in Westchester, which is basically from here to Pittsburgh
5
away from
hours
Philadelphia. It's from here to Philadelphia, from here to Pittsburgh away from Philadelphia. But I think the fact that Mars won it, they were the first the first team from Western PA to win a lacrosse championship in the state. Then the state's like, okay, a Western team's won it, so now I guess I don't know if that had anything to do with them putting the lacrosse championships right in the middle of the state as opposed to the very southeastern corner.
Yeah.
I am the great and powerful. Okay, let's see here. Remind our listeners and viewers what the question is.
I have the wrong text pulled up. I texted this to Laura. Okay, here's the question. Which team has the Steelers faced the most in the playoffs? Bonus point if you can tell me what the Steelers' record is in that playoff series.
Okay, let me make sure I got that. Okay, 77 they lost. 78 they won. 84 they won. 89 they lost. 97 they lost. 05 they won. 15 they lost. So 1, 2, 3. Broncos.
Broncos is the answer.
And their record is 3-4.
Oh, you're off by 1. 3-5.
Well, I go to 11-10.
Brendan cannot contest that you got the bonus point because you didn't get the bonus point. He could have come in next week, especially if he was in a sour mood if Notre Dame kicks his Buckeyes butts tonight.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm rooting for Brendan
wild.
or not tonight.
What's that?
I said I don't know if I'm rooting for Brendan or not tonight. I don't like the Buckeyes.
I'm not rooting for Brendan.
But also, happy Brendan is better Brendan.
I would love to see Notre Dame beat Ohio State and then him refer to Notre Dame as a mediocre program. Your team just lost in the national championship to a mediocre program.
Tell us in the comments if you're rooting for Brendan's Buckeyes tonight or not. Yes or no.
There you go. Buckeyes. So, we recently ran in the paper a list of Butler County's all-time 1,000-point boys basketball scores. Here's the list.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. So you're in your first year here, but you saw the list. Is there anything that sticks out about the number of kids for each program or the number of years, the point totals? What sticks out for you about the boys basketball 1,000-point scores in Butler County area?
I don't think in terms of how many per school, that didn't seem to surprise me too much. I mean, Butler's been around for a long time. Has a bunch of kids that have reached 1,000 points. The girls list will run at a later point, probably this week. We're expecting one other girl in the county to reach 1,000 points, so we'll just run it in conjunction with that. But from the boys' side, I think the note that I wrote down to myself is that every single one of the top 5 in the county. So it's Rob Carbony with 2,390 points, Ethan Morton 2,198, Devin Carney 2,082, Ben Sajak 1947, and Levi Orton 1701 have all been from this century. Ben Zajac being the oldest to do it in 2001. That's why I wanted to ask, or why I wrote this down too. Kind of lets me throw a question back at you, Derek, because this allows us to go back into your archives here. But of those players or others, like what do you have any good memories of? You've seen all of these players, I'm assuming at this. You've covered all of them at least once. Maybe Zajac not. That might have been right before you.
Right before me.
But it's an era of explosive scoring. I mean, that's 1,700 points at a minimum, and there's a couple of them that had 2,000 in that list there. What good stories do you have? Like, I don't have anything to really add on any of these players. I haven't seen them yet, but it didn't stand out to me as like everything's been in the last 25 years. So what do you got? What do you remember?
This doesn't actually have anything to do with Robbie Carmody, Butler County's all-time leading scorer with 2,390. It doesn't have anything to do with him on the court, but this would have been back when he was in probably 5th grade. And, of course, you know from us doing the story last August when his dad stepped down as boys coach at Mars. He was there for, I think, 26, 27 years.
Yeah.
So this would have been back in, like, 2011 maybe. And I'm waiting outside. If anybody's familiar with the way Mars is set up, the gym has stairs that go down to the locker rooms. And anytime I covered a game there, I would go down there and just wait outside the locker room for Rob to get done talking to the kids. He would come out and talk to me. So I'm waiting for him, and his wife, Stephanie, and Robbie are standing right outside the door. And, again, Robbie's like 11 years old, and I remember asking him. I knew who he was. I knew it was Rob's son. I said, so do you play basketball? And he looked up at me, and he just kind of nodded. I said, I said something about, what do you like most about it, or something like that. I like, scoring, or I like hitting three-pointers, something real basic like that. But it just, I never knew. I mean, I figured a coach's son is going to be a very smart player, a reliable player.
High floor.
Yeah, high floor. But little did I know that he was going to go on and have the career that he did. While he was there, it would have been his sophomore and senior year. They made the state championship game. His sophomore year, they lost to a team that wins a lot, Newman Gretty.
Yeah.
And his senior year, they lost to a school from outside of Scranton, Abington Heights. But I'll never forget seeing him outside the locker room and just knowing now what he went on to do. Went on to play at Notre Dame, but the high school career was just incredible. I mean, you score more points in your career than Ethan Morton. That's saying something. I do want to mention one thing about Ethan Morton, though. You see his point total. His senior year was the COVID year.
Oh, yeah.
And Butler was still alive in the playoffs when they got shut down.
Ooh.
I think it would have been
The state quarterfinals.
State quarterfinals.
Yep,
We had
I was covering a game that night.
I think we had 3 teams that were still alive, and Butler boys were definitely one of them. So, who knows if they finish that season, maybe Morton plays 3 more games and he scores, 90 more points. We'll never know. But one more thing I want to point out about Mars, which is pretty striking when you ask me. When I got here, Mars boys basketball had 1,000-point scorer, and that was Bill Crest from 1970. He had scored, I think, like 1,070 points. I got this marked down here somewhere. Since I've been here, Mars has, I think, 14,000 point scores since I got here.
You're the magic touch?
14. Crazy. Because I remember doing the story on Tim Fry in 2006 when he became the second Mars player ever to score 1,000. And then after that, it was just, Vinny Smith, Steve Kress. Obviously, Carmody came along, and his younger brother, Michael, he scored 1,000 points too. Owen Neerhoff. I mean, just this slew of players. Actually, I have it now. It's actually 13 players in 20 years. 13 players in the last 20 years have scored 1,000, have reached 1,000 points for Mars boys basketball.
Every generation, that means. Every generation of school kid, like every 4 years, you got at least 1 or 2.
Yeah, and I counted through the all-time scores for each of our boys teams here. I have seen 8 of the 11 play. So I'm lucky. We've had some great. We talk in the fall about how great soccer is, and I do think soccer's still the best overall sport in Butler County. But we have great athletes in every sport, and this list that we just produced, and you said the girls list is coming in a few days.
Mm-hmm.
It just proves that we got some great basketball players, great basketball history at a lot of our schools. And Josh Book was our interview today.
Yeah.
That kid, I don't know how many points he had after his sophomore year, but I do know that his sophomore year, and this is mentioned in the interview with him, he was a bench player who would come off come into a game and hit a big three every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a perimeter player, despite his size, which he was a good size at that point. Over the last 2 years, he's developed into a dominant player in the paint, averaging a double-double for the second straight season. In fact, last year he won co-player of the year for us in the county, and he's doing great again this year.
You got to think if you were putting betting odds on it here right now, he's the favorite this year again, right?
Oh, boy, you're putting me on the spot now. You know what? I know Shane Peters for Karn City, and they're not having the same kind of success that Slipperock boys are. I think Karn City's boys are still under 500, but I know Shane Peters is averaging a double-double. I don't know his exact numbers, but just from I covered them once this year, and just seeing the numbers that the stats that are called in from game to game by Zach Keppel, he actually emails in, he's got to be averaging a double-double too. So I think Book's probably the front runner, but it's we still got a ways to go, and I think there's going to be other kids we do have to consider.
Yeah. It's been almost 5 years since COVID shut everything down. I remember that last game that I covered. Mechanicsburg won and was going to play in the quarterfinals the next game, like 2 days later.
I covered.
We were walking around in the gym like, so do you think we're going to have our game next week or in 2 days? And everyone was like, yeah, I think so. Or maybe it's going to be delayed a couple days, but it'll blow over.
Little did we know. The last game I covered was down at North Hills Middle School. That's where their gym is down there. North Hills Middle School. It was a girls' game between Central Valley and North Catholic. North Catholic won, and I remember there was me and like two or three other writers from papers at that game, and we were talking about, because during the day that day they came out on ESPN and said they're thinking about shutting March Madness down, and it was like, wait, this can't be. I mean, but then we got to thinking, wait a minute, if they shut March Madness down, I mean, that's
everything else has to go.
Multi-million-dollar enterprise every March. What chance does high school basketball have of staying alive? Oh, 2020 was the year from.
We'll have to do like an episode in a couple weeks on that, because it'll be the 5-year anniversary. We'll have to do something around that. Yeah.
Oh, bad memories.
That 2020 was Mallory's eyes bled. Kobe died all on the same day, and then COVID a month and a half later. Like 2020 was a really odd year for my household.
Very weird.
Yeah. Not the worst. Like the fact that the COVID hit a month after she started having eye bleeds and couldn't drive was almost like the best thing possible, because everything had to stop. So we had to stay inside. So she just rested. I didn't have to worry about driving to games all the time and getting her to the office and stuff like that all the time. It was just everything stopped. We all have to stop. Cool. Like in a weird way for us, it was easier that happened. I don't want it to be the case, but the fact that the timing was the way it was helped us out a lot. I don't know how we would have gotten through work if life was normal at that time.
I don't know how we gotten through this show without Brendan Howe, but we did. And he will be joining us next week, hopefully here to talk about an Ohio State loss, but we'll see.
Feel better, Laura.
Taking my mayonnaise and getting out of here. We encourage you to subscribe to the Butler Eagle YouTube channel and Apple or Spotify podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Alter Eagle Podcast and at Butler Eagle News. Goodbye.